All rise to drink. Welcome to Sidebar Sessions by CD Law, your personal injury law firm. Your hosts, Miguel Custodio and Vineet Dubey. Two lawyers and guests breaking down law and life over a glass of wine. Get ready, this is Sidebar Sessions.
Welcome once again, friends, to CD Law's Sidebar Session. Myself, Miguel Custodio, and Vineet Dubey. Today, we have a really good friend of ours, Seth Price from Price Benowitz and Blue Shark Digital. He is in DC, and he's a good friend. So, Seth, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Seth, you are a man of many talents. Tell us a little bit about your practice and also about Blue Shark.
Sure. So I started a firm with a buddy. This is a guy I went to college and law school with who loves trial work. This guy loves being in the courtroom. And we decided 20 years ago, after being out of law school for a bit, to divide and conquer.
Where were you guys at law school? Where'd you meet?
We were GW Law School, UPenn undergrad, fraternity brothers, took the same year off between college and law school, ended up in the same law school, same section, and the same writing section.
Crazy, huh?
So the same 10-person.
It's funny how life works, huh?
Right. So he went to the public defender's program in DC, which is one of the elite national training grounds for trial lawyers. And I went to Big Law. I didn't like it. I was terrible at it. I went to New York during the first dot-com bubble in the late 90s, and I loved it. It was like all these businesses, sort of what we're seeing with AI now. People were like, oh, we could build a website for this and for that. And it was tremendous. I helped to launch a company called uslaw.com, which is very similar to what turned out to be LegalZoom or FindLaw. Think Friendster, if you're that old. Remember Friendster before Facebook?
Mm-hmm.
It was ahead of its time. And when the bubble burst, we were like, what do you do now? Like I knew technology, I knew marketing, and I wanted to run a business. And my buddy Dave, he was burnt out from trial work as a public defender where they just grind you. And we decided to divide and conquer, where he would be the chief legal officer and I would be the chief marketing and operations person, which sounds great, but we had no cases and we were sitting in his basement. So I built a website, phone starts ringing. Like within 2 weeks, we outgrow our first office. We build another website. We hire another lawyer, built another website, hired another lawyer, and had this incredible run. 10 years in, we had a firm that now had personal injury, criminal defense, family, DC, Maryland, Virginia, eventually South Carolina. And
were other firms at the time building websites, or were you guys like one of the
I mean,
very first ones that actually started harnessing that technology?
Well, there were people with websites. Nobody was doing SEO.
Okay.
Search engine optimization was not a thing that people were embracing. And it was the Wild West because search engine optimization before Google cracked out on spam was the spammier you were, the better. Your keyword stuffing. An injury lawyer in California who helps injured people who have been injured by no fault of their own need an injury lawyer. The more times that would work. Now, over the years, that's evolved and that doesn't work. So it was figuring out how to get your message out, game the algorithm, and it was just so much fun. And we built this firm. And as you know, when you start, culture is you are it. And there's nothing beyond you. You know everybody, you know their spouses, you celebrate their birthdays together. Frankly, they didn't have spouses because we were so young. And it was just this incredible ride. And I was in charge of marketing, and I would lose my right-hand person every 2 years like clockwork. It wasn't like they went to a competitor. One guy became a sports agent. Another guy went over to Europe to help solve AIDS in Europe. Like it was always crazy, but I didn't have stability. And what I decided was, hey, I have this great team at this point, about 5, 6 people, and I don't want it to be I didn't want the turnover of an in-house team. And I took these amazing people that I had and turned it into a collective, meaning if we could do digital marketing for Price Benowitz, about 30 lawyers at the time, we could do it for other people. And that was the impetus for Blue Shark. Blue Shark was taking the best practices we had with our in-house team and then replicating those for what's now 300 law firms around the country. Price Benowitz is now 50 lawyers across 5 states, including DC. It's not really a state.
And we're
but
one of those 300 law firms.
Yes, we are.
Just no conflict
Cool.
of interest here.
And that was
full
it.
disclosure.
Full disclosure. That's what it is.
Full disclosure, and I appreciate that. But what you've seen in working with us is it's fundamentals. Like, there are a lot of people doing marketing, a lot of lawyers get ripped off in this space. But for us, it's, can you deliver fundamentals at scale? Knowing digital marketing is one thing. But for me, the passion I have, just like law, if you had 10 cases to yourself, you could do great work on those cases. But as you expand, it's a different skill set to deliver, quality to multiple people rather than a select few. And that's where I come to you today.
How many SEO companies did we go through?
So, yeah. So, it's so funny. Vineet and I have been working for such a long time together that, just like you and your partner, Seth, you guys probably like finish each other's sentences. So, what you just said right now, Vineet, is what I was going to go into, which is before Blue Shark, and I bring this up not really as a plug. I mean, obviously it is a plug for you guys, but I bring this up because we know that a lot of people that watch this podcast are young attorneys that are barely starting out. They kind of don't know what they should do, what vendor to go with. And unfortunately, we had really bad experiences with SEO companies that Vineet, we went through one SEO company every year for about 6 years.
Yeah.
And how many times did we get cases from them?
0.
Yeah.
Every year we got 0 cases, and then we'd have a meting with another company, and he'd take us to lunch, and he would tell us what they're going to do different. And and once again, we're lawyers, right? We're not tech guys. We try to learn and handle what we could at the time, but we were starting our own practice. We had a million other things to do, right?
Yeah.
So we went with a different SEO company who sold us. We went for a year and didn't get anything. Then we went for another one.
Yeah, for another one. And then we
literally
started,
6 companies in 6 years.
We started getting smarter
Tens
and
of
smarter.
thousands of dollars.
Yeah. And so the company before Blue Shark, we actually started getting, I don't even want to mention their name, right? But so the reason why we actually went to that company, why we left the prior SEO company, is because, Seth, I don't know if I ever told you this, right? But we got a few calls from clients, and the client was like, I remember one client was mad that he said, "Hey, you guys transferred me to a different lawyer named so-and-so." And I said, "We don't even have that person in the office. What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, I went online and I clicked on the number that's there, and it took me to your law firm." It turned out that it was a competitor, and they were talking to some other attorney. And then I confront the SEO guy, remember?
Yeah.
And he was just like, "Oh, we don't know how that happened. It's unfortunate. We'll give you a couple extra months."
Yeah.
And that was when we were just like, "Oh, you know what? We're gonna."
But you're sort of showing my point. Like, you know law firms like this, right? The lawyer may not be so bad at the top of the pyramid, but if you're dealing with somebody 4 steps down from that, where's the quality control?
Yeah.
And we know this is, if you have other lawyers listening, right? We know that scaling anything is not easy, right?
Yeah.
And that you have to let go because you guys are so good at what you do, but you can only touch so many things without help. So I think that when you want to grow, my wish is that you are able to empower good people. No, it may not be done quite as well as you. Ideally, in the long term, you find people that can do things better than you. But the idea is that if you don't put those checks and balances to allow for the quality to remain, if it's not let's say you would do it at 90%. You're not perfect, but like if you can make sure that you keep it at 85 or 80 rather than just like let the bottom fall out, that's the piece that's so challenging to me because you guys start like we went to law school. Most of us didn't get MBAs. We don't have all those organizational pieces in place. And so that when we have to figure this out, a lot of it has to be self-taught.
Yeah, one of the biggest things we did was hire a marketing director. right? Is that what you're going to
This
say?
guy's just, yeah.
Yeah, we hired, and he's fantastic. And he took over dealing with SEO companies, and he took these meetings, and every week he was able to actually look at what they were saying and like with
And call them out if it wasn't true.
Well, and for me, I want that. To me, the biggest problem I have
right?
is if we become the outsourced portion of the company. If this is like, hey, you could hire these people, but they'll quit like they did for me, and instead you have a base of people that are committed, and if you have somebody on the inside who is able to speak the language and then collaborate to, so one and one becomes seven, that's the magic. And that very rarely, the bane of the digital marketer's existence, assuming that they're doing good work, is that when you have the goods, you need the raw material, because we're not just, Google wants to see who you are. They want depth. They want to know what your cases are that have done well. They want to be able to have, they want to be able to see video. They want to be able to see podcasts. They want to see that you're a real person. And like, if you're an outside agency that doesn't have a true back and forth with the law firm, it doesn't work nearly as well as when you have that conduit who helps not just keep, make sure that you're not being ripped off. Let's take that as table stakes, but rather to be able to provide the fuel and the raw material so that we can build the mosaic that the Google algorithm is going to like.
So one thing that I should point out is, when you're first starting out, you don't have the luxury of having a full-time marketing person, or in our case, now we have a department. So I would say, might as well ask the expert. What would you say for somebody who is just starting out and they need to have some help on their end so they can communicate better with the SEO company?
I'll take a step back. I love EOS, whatever you use for your meetings. The thing that I love is day one, when you put out an org chart and you write down all the positions. You guys are a substantial firm, as we are, so most of those positions are filled. When you start, you may be in 6 of those slots. Yep. Right? Because you don't have the resources. Everyone. You can't hire, you may be doing your books, you may be doing the marketing, and as you put yourself in those places, you get a vision as to where you're going to need to slot people to do different things in order to grow and, frankly, to survive. You can't live if you have every slot. Yeah. You're not going to scale if you're in every seat. And I think that the decision has to do with, this is my own personal theory. We all do what we like. If you like to do something, like you guys clearly like this podcast. My law partner loves doing white collar, and he wanted to have him do a white collar podcast where you have different people on, because we're not a B2C world. It's really B2B. Other lawyers refer stuff in. Mm-hmm. He hated it. He did it once, twice. There's literally a podcast with 2 episodes in the can out there. If you love the marketing,
this is number 3 for us.
This is number 3.
Number 3, great. So, but if somebody says, should I blog? Well, if you hate writing, then no, right. Because you're not going to do it. So to me, I think you got to figure out not just what you're not good at, which is a given, but what is it that you are good at that may allow you to bootstrap long enough. So if you like marketing, you understand it, you're that guy. But if you don't, if you're sitting there saying, hey, this is not for me, this is all Greek to me, then you know what? It may be a fractional person to begin with. It may be you don't need a full-time person day one, but you might get somebody for $100 an hour for 10 hours a month to make sure that they're reviewing the work as a checks and balances, so you don't go through 6 people in 6 years. No,
I think,
or you could cut that down.
I think that's very important. And let's take a step back, Seth. Let's talk about your background. Where'd you go to school, undergrad?
Where'd you grow up? Start from there.
No. So I think that this will be telling, because East Coast, West Coast. I was New York City. I grew up in the city, pre-Giuliani, New York. It was gritty. The city was not particularly safe. But the flip side was the city was my oyster. I could walk anywhere. From my house, I go to Madison Square Garden for a Knicks game. I could walk down to Wall Street, go up to the top of the World Trade Center. The city was very, very accessible from a young age. And you saw opportunities that were there. I got off the school bus one day. Restaurant needed some guy to help out in the restaurant. Boom, first really paying job at age 12. A political campaign I worked on needed newspapers delivered. I said, okay, you need 100 buildings of newspapers delivered. I said, hey, give me $3,500 and a bunch of newspapers and I'll do it. And my parents still talk about it. 10,000 newspapers ended up in my living room. I paid the neighborhood goods $3 a building, had a pizza party between the buildings they went to. Boom. So to me, it was, you saw what was possible. And my kids are growing up in the suburbs. It's not the same. They're minivan between different school
I
stuff.
was just gonna say that. Isn't that interesting? Do you like everybody thinks about New York City and it's like everybody that's a hustler, right, goes to New York to try to make it. But so much of that seems like it's like homegrown, right? Because if you're that 8-year-old kid walking around New York, taking the subway, finding opportunities, it's like such a different upbringing than growing up in the suburbs or anywhere else, right?
But I'm going to go on a tangent here. If you've read the book Outliers, Outliers, and he talked about the difference between the Jewish immigrants and some of the Mexican immigrants, where the Mexican immigrants were stuck on farms and the Jewish immigrants were impoverished on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. The access from there, they might be selling rags, but there were Wall Street titans walking by and they could see opportunity and do it. Whereas if you were restricted, you didn't have those same opportunities. And I think that's true. Now, positive, negative, I loved it. My sister did not. This was, we'd be stepping over, people from the methadone clinic, on the way to school. And
so it kind of takes a personality type as well to take advantage of that.
Right. So she now does low income housing and battles to get people within the federal government money so that they can get off the streets if they have AIDS or they're veterans or what have you with HUD. For me, I saw this as, wow, look at all the different potential that's out there, and just the fact that you could, Miguel knows I love meeting people, spending time. You walk down the street, 3 blocks, you've gone from like Little Italy to Chinatown to Wall Street. It's crazy how compact New York City is.
Different worlds.
Yeah.
Different worlds that are right there. And to me, again, I am glad that my kids have a nice bubble existence in the suburbs, but there's a level of grit that they will not get.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's sad. It's in one sense a blessing, but in one sense they're missing something that I think is important as far as just like New York City was so bad that we used to get mugging money. And if you were mugged, just here's your $10 or $20 and go on your way rather than beat the person up.
Right.
And that was in existence. I was fast, so I never took it because I would outrun the guys. But
and your kids aren't going to have to deal with that in the suburbs of New York.
Right. I mean, generally no. That they're but at the same time is getting them to go to a Caps game by Metro, like they do it now, but like it was a whole to do. Oh my God, is it safe? Is it this? Is it that?
Yeah.
And look, I could be flippant. But if you remember, the kid who put milk carton kids on milk cartons eating pats was, my sister's age from elementary school, walked to the bus and didn't make it. So again, we put seatbelts on for safety. There's things that we've done over time that are constricting. At the same time, I think it's that balance, and I'm just very grateful that I had that exposure. So I went to UPenn, met Dave there, and then ended up, I think, when I went back to New York after Big Law, it was that dot-com bubble period, very similar to what we're starting to see with AI, where everybody saw what was possible. And it was crazy. There were 6 different pet food online companies, and there was this and there was that. But everybody was trying to figure out what could be done with this new technology. And that to me was just really exciting and be at the epicenter of that. And I think it was that rebirth into New York, again, a much later 90s, a very different New York City that, this is the pre 9/11 world, just that really was, hey, if you can hustle like this, this law firm world is nothing. And I think that I see friends from the East Coast, particularly New York, that go to LA, they always have an edge up because there's a pace. I mean, you guys have such great quality of life and got the ocean right there, and it's a little bit more laid back that if you're willing to bring that grit to the table, you can do a lot of damage.
Yeah. And so you went to UPenn undergrad. Law school?
Undergrad.
And then law school, where'd you go?
GW for law school.
GW. And then you were in Big Law. How long were you there for?
A little over 2 years.
Okay.
I was not particularly good. When I was on the transaction side, I wanted to be the client. I wanted to be the guy who was putting the stock option plan and giving people opportunity. I don't have attention to detail. I'm a 10 on the quick start I got a call from Mogul when those tests came out. It's like, oh shit, this is like,
The-
you know, you clearly need somebody following you to help sop up everything you're throwing out
I'm
there.
like an 8, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and being dyslexic doesn't help the cause of reviewing documents and getting all the I's dotted. So I am very thankful now that I do deals. I've always, there are people who hate paying legal fees. I want to. I want to make sure stuff is protected because I know I won't
Yeah.
protect it.
Yeah. So let's take a step back a little. Talk about SEO for people that don't really know what that is, and how that helps law firms or any business really in general. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So search engine optimization is basically the art of putting your firm at the top of Google organically. And the world of search, it's basically search. When somebody is searching for something, and 90% of search traffic still goes through Google, right? There's Yahoo Bing, we now have, ChatGPT. And again, we're talking about AI in a minute. Those are disrupting the world. But for people like you and me, our work comes in search, generally from somebody searching in a Google search browser and saying, I need a lawyer for this. And when that happens, Google has different ways that people can be found. There are paid ads, which are up at the top, might be a listing. You pay per click on that. Very, very expensive. And it's great news is there's tremendous inventory, but you can go to the poorhouse quickly just bidding on keywords if
especially
you
in a
don't.
larger market like Los Angeles or New
New
York or
York,
Miami.
Miami.
Right.
Correct. And it also depends on what your average. The good thing I love about your market is you get those 5-star cases every so many. A lot of markets, tort law doesn't allow for that. So the fact that you have that opportunity, don't take for granted. It's pretty special. It's a very cool thing that you have in your market. Secondly, you have this is more recent, last few years, they have local service ads where the Google puts something, it looks like an organic listing, but it's not, where you're paying per call. It's almost like Google lead gen. And in general, that's been a pretty good opportunity for lawyers in that you're not paying for clicks and hoping they convert. You know that everybody calling has some sort of a legal issue. In theory, Google will not charge you for people that are completely outside the box. It's moved to AI. It's not so perfect, but it's still generally for PI lawyers a pretty good place to be found. The organic, or quote unquote free, although nothing is free, is both the traditional search, but that's now almost position 11. You have ads, LSAs,
Yeah.
the map pack I'll talk about in a second, and then organic. But the truth is, when you get that, especially if it's something national, you can do extreme damage because there's so much search traffic. But smack in the middle between the organic and the paid is the map pack or the 3-pack. And that real estate, very, very valuable. And to get into this 3-pack, this local pack, it is really important to understand that it's a combination of what traditional SEO for the organic, which is high quality content and authoritative links with a well-coded site, combined with the local algorithm, which is your Google business profile. I assume everyone watching is familiar that there's a place where, whether it's a restaurant or a law firm, you have your name, you have your photos, maybe videos, you have reviews, you have directions, all the things you see. That real estate, extremely valuable. And so our job as an SEO is to get as much of the organic power combined with local so that you can be found in that 3-pack. And if you went back a couple years, there used to be some guy in LA or Chicago that was in the 3-pack for everything, for good and bad. And I'm going to say good for us because neither of us are this. I mean, is that they basically came up with something called the proximity update, where they said, okay, we're essentially adding near me to all searches. Now, the truth is, if somebody's on the other side of LA, should it matter that they're hiring you? So much stuff is virtual right now. They're not in your office all the time.
Even the other side of California,
Yeah.
Correct.
Anywhere in the state.
Correct. But Google is essentially saying, hey, we're going to give strong preference, just like if you're ordering a pizza. You don't want a pizza from the other end. You don't want an Oakland pizza if you're in LA. You want something that is reasonably close so it's still hot when it gets to your house. Google decided the better answer for people is something near to you. The good news is it allows you to compete against some of the juggernauts because it's not like John Morgan can own the entire state from one location. They can only own so much geography from a search point of view. And that's where it gives an advantage to smaller mid-sized players because you can find a location and put a pin on the map, something we've talked a lot about, and finding locations where you get the most population with the least competition and try to make that your home. And so instead of having just one office where everything comes from, spreading out to 3, 4, 5 locations over time so that you can have as many different groups of population that have the potential to see you. And if SEOs do their job, the authority of your site plus the reviews you get plops you in the 3-pack in those different locations.
So reviews, you just touched on that, which I think is important. Can you explain a little bit about reviews? Why are they important? Are they important?
We have 1,000 5-star, by the way.
More than 1,000.
Close to 1,100.
Yeah.
And look, freaking awesome. It is super important in today's world, and for a number of reasons. So first, when they first came out, it was sort of like a vanity thing. Great. It moved to like a conversion piece. If you were deciding one guy had a 4.7 and you had a 5.0 or a 4.9, you're going to get an advantage. Just like buying something on Amazon, you might look at the review number, but you might say, you know what? They're only a 4.6, but they have 1,000 reviews versus this guy has 12 reviews and it's a 5.0, right? So again, it has become part of the algorithm. If you don't have reviews, you're not going to compete in competitive places. So all the work I do, and the reason, just like if you don't answer the phone, you're not going to convert the cases. If you don't get reviews and give Google the social proof, not only is it bad for conversion, but it's really bad because you may not show up in the 3-pack if you're not gaining reviews. And so this is something I feel very passionate about, which is we need to move beyond just a case that comes to your firm, gets signed up, is worked, they get their check, they're happy, and they go on their way, and then you ask for a review. That's a perfectly good review. But if you limit that to yourself, you will not be able to keep up. And this is especially true for the junior guys coming up, is that you need to broaden your definition of what a review is. Because if, let's say we got on a plane and we said, you know what, tonight after this podcast, we're going to Vegas. And the 3 of us barge into Vegas on a packed night, and we go to Carbone, and we're like, okay, table for 5. We want us and our posse to be able to get in. And the lady's like, oh, do you have a reservation? No, I'm sorry, we're fully committed. We can write a bad review about them. We spoke to somebody there. We've never tasted their food. We've never entered their restaurant. But that's a user experience by Google standards. Just like somebody could call up CD Law and say, hey, I want to speak to somebody, like, I don't like their attitude. Done. You haven't done anything for them. You've done nothing. That little intersection. So to me, what I want to do is I don't want fraud, but I want to meet Google where it's at, because people who know you, somebody may call you. How often do you get a call from a neighbor said, my contractor ripped me off. What should I do? And you're like, how much is at stake? Go settle it. It's not worth fighting about. All of those microtransactions intake for us now, we get a ton of calls that we can't help with, but we know who the right person is, right? We're giving free, you're paying for the people answering the phone. They're having a real experience with your firm. So if the lady at Carbone said, you know what, we're really busy, but go down here because there's a hole in the wall right off the strip that has even better Italian, to me, that's a positive relationship that person, you could say something nice about that person. So part of this is starting to think about reviews more globally, from intake to your interpersonal, really, really important. But the piece that I think which will get us to the AI conversation, is that Google is battling for its life. ChatGPT came out of nowhere, right? For the first time ever, Google's below 90%, although just barely. And that they are looking for what differentiates them. If ChatGPT is using Yelp reviews, illegal, they're so mucked up. They're not clean. Nobody goes to Yelp to review unless they're really happy, really sad. It's not a true representation of the firms. It's not going to tell you where to go for legal help. It meant that guy was tech savvy and got a Yelp account, whereas most people could care less about it. Whereas Google has all these, you have 1,000 5-star reviews. That's very valuable usage that's very valuable information for somebody looking for a lawyer. And the fact that it's not 10 people, but it's 1,000 people that can do this, that information, I think, sort of AI proofs them or becomes the information that AI is going to want for that next generation. If they own it, they're going to use it. So the reviews, I think, are important for conversion. They're important for being found in the 3-pack. But that social proof is what's going to be important as AI evolves more and more into search.
Yeah, and it's very interesting that a lot of times we'll talk to clients, after the case is done, and they'll tell us, hey, I'm glad I really came here. One of the reasons why I came was because I read the reviews and they were really positive. Also, when we're meeting with potential staff members, employees, they'll have looked at these reviews. So it's something where I think reviews help for a lot of reasons. I think
on many levels.
They give people a bigger sample size than just like a paid advertising that you see on Instagram or a commercial or a billboard. They're very powerful, very powerful.
And the advice I give to all the people listening is that it's that important, as you said. The firm needs to know that that's your love language, that you care about it. When you have a monthly or quarterly meeting with the team, this is what's important. You have incentives lined up. You have a KPI. You're rewarding people that do it, and frankly, shaming those that don't. Making sure that it's part of the DNA of the firm. And in a perfect world, especially someplace your size, I have an international assistant who is the actual wrangler, who keeps track of it, lets us know if something's not, if reviews are not coming in, is there to make sure, hey, case is over. Did they get a review link? Is it out? Oh, they didn't respond. Let's see if we can make sure that they get some love so that they take the time. And it's being creative. There's no one, I can't say this is how you do it, but continuing to try and evolve and know that what works one day may not work the next day, and continue to work with your team so that, because think about it, they got to get through the day. They got to do their work. They got to get home and take care of the family. There's all sorts of issues in their lives. This is the last thing they care about. But to you, it's worth between $1,000 and $2,000 per review. If you get an extra 100 reviews, that's at least $100,000 to $200,000 more in revenue, in my experience. And God forbid, if you got another 1,000 reviews, we do another $1 million to $2 million the next year. No doubt in my mind. So, ignore reviews at your peril.
That's it. We're going to start shaming those employees that don't get any reviews. What? Maybe tar and feather them, Vineet?
Well, look, how about this? How about go the other way, which is, look, I say that tongue in cheek, but look, we've done stuff like a weighted raffle. Every review that mentions somebody's name gets an entry, and the winner got like a weekend cruise. Fun stuff that was like anything I can do that gets somebody thinking about it, that says, you know what, I got all this personal stuff to do, all this work to do. I'm going to make sure this still stays as part of my world. Or is there an opportunity? And again, you really don't want to go the negative route, but you do want to make sure. I'm fine with the idea of highlighting so much the people that are doing well, that hopefully some of that FOMO and some of that, converts to them actually doing it.
Maybe we take away the parking pass for a month for whoever brings in the least number of reviews, something like that.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, that would be a huge.
I got to clear it by HR though.
What was it like Glenn Ross? Was it steak knives for the winner? And
you'll be parking down the street and walking every day, as opposed to in our little cushy parking lot.
You'll get to see the nicer part of downtown.
Yeah. Is this the law firm version of the Walk of Shame?
The Walk of Shame.
Totally.
Yeah,
shame,
there you go. Perfect.
Shame.
Yeah. Perfect. So AI, let's talk about that. It's important. It's coming. Is it here? What do law firms need to? What do law firms need to do right now, Seth, if they're not adopting AI?
And it was so interesting to me that you said 90% still. Google is still at 90% of users.
Just under
89. So it's still like the behemoth that controls that much of the market. When is ChatGPT or other AI sources going to cut into that? Do you think they're going to cut into that? Yeah. Is Google going to be able to counter? Where are we going here?
Yes, and yes. You tee this up perfect. So if we're going to land the plane with any topic, it's that. I'm going to separate For another day, we'll talk about law firm operations and AI. I'm
Sure.
going to talk about marketing AI.
Part two.
And so what we're seeing is the following, and you literally summed up my feeling on this. It is
That's what I do.
currently
That's what I
sort
do.
of a shiny object in the sense that the majority of search is still going through Google. Now, Google has Gemini, and the fact that there's an AI result, and I love Gemini. Gemini 3, I believe, just came out, taking it to a new level. Maybe, Google is not going to go down and say, oh, yeah, ChatGPT, you could go eat our lunch. They're investing so much in Gemini to make it the place of choice. For myself, I have questions about restaurants. Can I bring my dog? All these things. I'm not getting to the restaurant website. Gemini gives me everything. Like the answers there, and you're going to see that if you look at your search traffic. As Gemini came out, our traffic, everybody's traffic went down. It didn't really cut into revenue because a lot of it was stuff that was answerable. That wasn't, I need a lawyer. It was questions from your site that were used to get it. So I don't like it. It's not good, but it affected everybody sort of equally. What I am seeing is the following. AI is not going anywhere. It's going to evolve year after year. Who the winner is, like that's above my pay grade. Like, will it be Gemini? I think they have a very good chance. Will ChatGPT figure out some sort of killer application that will put you there? I don't know. But what I could tell you is I want to be wherever that is. So the first thing is the current algorithm with local search is what's making our clients bank, right? If you have offices with reviews and SEO and all that stuff, you will make money because those are compensable cases coming in. Great. The next question is what, as you were sort of just asking, what do we have to do about AI? And so people fit into two categories. Some are like, look, if it's such a small percentage of the market, I'll punt on it and wait till it's really more meaningful. There are other people say, I want to be there from a vanity point of view. Like no matter what the cost is, I want to be there. And the truth is, we now have AI packages that are looking at things like Reddit, like Avo, like Justia, different websites that were Wikipedia, things we didn't care as much about, we now care more about. And that's because of this
Podcasts.
new, well,
No.
it's touch points,
Yeah.
meaning I would reconvert your website to the best Los Angeles, personal injury law firm, meaning they're looking for crap that's out there, super lawyers, best lawyers, stuff that we know is quasi pay to play that's not like so perfect that all of these things where the local newspaper that's doing a best contest, right? Used to be, it's nice to be in there. Now, the fact that the AI algorithm is reading this and seeing it and saying, oh, well, these guys must be best because it's there. They don't really understand that this is a newspaper thing where all your friends voted. It wasn't like
So
who
is
the
it
lawyer thought was
comparable
best.
to when you mentioned earlier in the early days of SEO, you write injury 800 times in a paragraph and you're going to be the
Yeah.
first? I mean, it sounds like it's comparable to
The
that.
Wild
where
West
It's
type of thing.
correct.
It's a
There are no
Wild
rules
West and
right
it's
now.
best, and you're going to get picked up by AI.
Correct. So I think it's a combination of balancing of testing things. To me, I want to be there. And like, I'll give you an example, going out to all your peeps out there. Reddit, a very powerful location right now, right? That said, it's also a very dangerous location. You don't want to start advertising on Reddit. You'll get, skinned alive. It's terrible, right? Can't do that. So what we need to do is if I was a young lawyer, I would learn how to own that platform, not from an advertising point of view, but just as an interpersonal, what works, what doesn't, how do I become part of that ecosystem? So when I do want to slot my work stuff in, it's not, as my kids would say, cringe, but it's part of that environment. So to me, it's understanding that Q&As are becoming one of those places. We saw this 10, 15 years ago when Avo started, that Q&As were really important, but starting to look at some of these, as you said, best, where anything that you can associate with rewriting your bios for stuff that we've all won awards that we know are kind of BS, but if best is in there or super's in there, I'm now putting that all over the place. And so all of a sudden, what's important to us, what's important in a bio, we used to be like, we just thought about it as a conversion from the human being, but we're now saying, hey, if AI is scraping this, looking at your bio, we're now writing for AI as well as for the consumer. Just like when you do search pages about a car accident in Fresno, the fact is you want it for consumers, but you also want the Google bot for the traditional Google algorithm to find that and like that page.
How quickly is that going to change? Because we all keep hearing about how fast AI is like learning and developing, and 5x, 10x,
Yeah.
the intellectual capacity is going up so fast. So then next year, are they going to be so far past that where all this best nonsense doesn't matter because they actually are understanding what's really important, or no? Or am I just jumping way ahead?
A brilliant question, and I'll tell you why. This is what it is.
Rhodes
Because
Scholar here.
that's why I don't want to go all in on current AI nonsense, because I believe what you're saying is true. AI is going to get smart enough to know that Avo is defunct and that people are not on Avo day to day. When it got sold 6 years ago, nobody spent any time there. It's a wasteland.
And that you
And
really
so-
shouldn't listen to anybody on Reddit, right? Because they're
No, but right, they're
98%
using it because
assholes.
it's cheap and easy,
No
but
offense,
they
right.
got to get something somewhere. And so what I would say is that's why we're watching it, we're doing it. I don't like to think that this is just like the Google algorithm has evolved, AI is going to evolve as well. And while the themes may be there, it's likely to be linkless, whereas Google's using links to help rank things. It's going to be linkless. I think that over time, if you went all in on Avo thinking this is going to be the destination, at some point, the AI is going to be smart enough to know this is not really a place that people, an authoritative place. And right now it's grabbing anything. And therefore, that is the reason that if you went and cracked the code on current AI, there may be a short-term pop, but I'm skeptical. I agree with you. Look, it is evolving. The piece that I think is more important is how quickly will consumers use that as their
right.
search destination rather than a traditional Google search? Or will Google say, we're going all in and using, they already have AI answers at the top.
Right.
Will it become more integrated into its algorithm so it's not something that we
How
recognize?
much do you do you do Chat GPT now instead of Google, like every time, or
No.
and you too in your personal life?
I use Gemini quite a bit.
Yeah.
If I'm really thinking about stuff, then I'll start using like Claude, just to see if there's any different responses. But Google, look, they're smart, right? They make it very easy because I'm not even scrolling down below the Gemini stuff, right? I'm like, okay, I think
stopping
that's
right there,
quite
right?
Right, which is why the traffic is dropped. But when you're going to buy, do you stop there?
No.
And that's
No.
the difference.
It's like the beginning of the search, and then you're like, okay,
It's a search, informational search.
Yeah.
Like, if I rear end somebody, can I still sue them? Right? I'm just going to use that as an example. And then that might give you a factual answer. Or if I'm 50% at fault in an accident, can I still claim any money? Okay, now they have law. You still need a freaking lawyer. And while there is a best answer that they're showing for lawyers right now, and there's some traffic on it, I think that people, it takes a little bit of time for people to change their habits. But that's why I also think Google has a huge competitive advantage, because we're there and it's for them to screw this up.
I
'Cause
also
as we
do.
just said,
I also do think that what we're just talking about right now, is also shaped by age and demographics. I think young people, they are getting close to 90 to 100% of their everything from AI. I don't think they're like scrolling down and doing what we're doing, right? I
Well,
think
but they're not buying. My kid is all. He just sent me a message the other day. Do you have an AI checker I can use? Clearly, he does 90% of his homework with AI. No doubt in my mind.
How old
That's
are
why,
your kids?
18, 17, and 11.
Yeah,
The boy,
nice.
and the 17-year-old who's an engineer is trying to decide which part of engineering he can go into that's most AI proof. Like anything
Where
with
he'll
computer
still have a
programming.
job
Yeah.
in 10 years,
Right.
which is smart. I mean, that's smart.
Yeah.
Right, but who knows?
Yeah.
Like, and it could be that like computer programming, yes, AI is going to do it, but if you know how to, if you like, to me, I think there's another side to it, which is somebody's going to have to be able to like interpret what's there. It won't be as many jobs, but if you figure out the intersection. So, to yes, your point, I couldn't agree more. The Utes, they're already all over this in a dangerous, dangerous level. And when you see the grades on the written assignments versus the in classroom assignments, totally night and day. And also when you're dealing with this, I'm starting to see the teachers are now have software that shows how you're inputting the words. Are you cutting and pasting a chunk and throwing it in, or are you actually typing the stuff in, in a thoughtful
Wow.
way? Now, it's only a matter of time between there's an app that will take
Sure.
the words of your AI search
Right.
and like,
Right.
Yeah.
but
So let me ask you a question. Is it 18, 17, and 11? So it's so funny that I was talking to a mom last night about a lot of these very issues. So I have a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, right? So I'm just now getting into, second grade and kindergarten. I took my second grader to play in a soccer thing with some older kids last night. And one of the moms who I knew of one of the older kids was like talking about ChatGPT. And she was like, do you use it much? Are you into it? And I said a little bit, and she goes, I've been using it as Google, but I went on a drive with one of my coworkers, and then he started showing me how you can talk to it, and it talks back to you like a person. And she goes, think about a 12-year-old, 13, 14-year-old boy. Think about that experience for them and what it can cause and what kind of damage it can potentially cause if they're talking to ChatGPT like they're talking to a girl. And she was like, there's, of course, we've all heard about the kid and the one teenager who killed himself after ChatGPT broke up with him, right? And there's a big lawsuit. So in your experience with your kids, like how are they getting sucked into that? Are they still out in the world talking to girls and friends, or and how are you stopping it, or how are you keeping
look,
tabs on it
it
as a
goes
dad?
of all the issues. My issue with ChatGPT is whether they're doing their work themselves and learning how to think and build and grow. And half the time, like, Dad, we're not going to need this. Like, like all the history stuff where we had to learn something, they're like, we could just ask a question now and get the answer in 2 seconds, like better than even search, right? So there's a certain amount that, you'll have a digital companion. But maybe this circles back to that grit. If you can't figure stuff out on your own, you're dependent on it.
Yeah.
I think there's skill sets in life that will not set you up as well. And my bigger issue, I think, which I'm guilty of as much as anybody, the scrolling video. I think that short form video is so addicting and can be the algorithms are evil. They know what you're interested in so quickly. It can change opinions. I mean, that to me is the stuff that keeps me up at night. The 11-year-old, the anxiety of these kids.
Yeah.
If you haven't hit that yet, even my workforce, people right out of school, number of people with anxiety issues, tremendous. And there's a direct correlation to our use of phones and the fact that it's ubiquitous. So
Yeah, that's a whole nother issue.
Yeah, we're gonna do another podcast on
yeah,
that.
I think we're gonna do a part 3.
Yeah, part 3.
So Seth, clearly, you're very passionate about this area and Blue Shark. What advice do you have for attorneys that they're practicing law, but they're like, I'm really passionate about something else, not just litigating, right? What do you have any advice for that, right? Because it seems like you're very aside from ambitious, you're just very creative in how to take one set of skills and help a lot more people, right? And let's just say, I like being a lawyer, but this really drives me. Say, something in business or something. How easy is it to transition, from being a lawyer to, having a business?
I think there are a couple factors. One is, are you essential to your current business? Because until you make yourself not essential, you're screwing over the golden egg, the golden goose that's, paying your bills. I think secondly, it's to, look, start with a side hustle. That's what I did. I mean, see what's there, test it out, have fun, make it your hobby. And if the hobby starts to pay dividends, you can allocate more and more resources to it. But to me, I stand by people do what they like. And if you hate going to court and that's your job, find a way, assuming you have the cases, to hire people to do that and then free yourself up. But you can't do it unless you staff yourself appropriately to give yourself that extra bandwidth.
How long's Blue Shark been around?
10 years.
And when you first started, I'm sure it was just you.
No, it was our in-house team.
Yeah, it was your.
That was so I came with it with a modest team, and they were like, "Hey, we did it for Price Benowitz. Let's do it for others."
Got it.
And it wasn't until we had a success story outside of Price Benowitz that it took off. For some people, like, "Oh, that's just you. You're a one-trick pony." But it was once we did it for somebody else that it became sort of like, "Oh, these guys are for real."
How many employees does Blue Shark have now?
About 100.
Wow.
The law firm was
Yeah.
50.
Yeah.
50
Shark,
lawyers,
100.
no, maybe a couple hundred total, but like,
Yeah.
each company has about 1/3 international.
As we get to a close, one of the things, I met Seth going to Atlanta and attending CRISP conferences and workshops. But, I see Seth at a lot of other conferences. And I asked him, I think it was last year, I asked him, how many conferences do you go to in a year? And he said something like 14 or 15, right? Something like that.
Down to 12, but that was the old normal.
So how important is it for a young attorney or any attorney that wants to grow professionally or their business acumen? How important is going to different conferences?
I think it depends on what your goals are. If you are trying to get better as a trial lawyer, there are very specific places to go and be a repeat player and make a real difference. If you're interested in cutting edge marketing, there are places to go. I feel very blessed because I could double dip. Every conference I go to could be a referral source for Price Benowitz. It could be a potential Blue Shark client, or frankly, it gets me out of the office and thinking and meeting really interesting people and coming up with new ideas on how to take on the world. So I think that I can go back to my earlier days, and whether it was a mastermind or a conference, there were times where I'm like, you know what? I got to sit at home. I know what to do. I've been to the last 2 conferences. I have my list. And if you go and look for more shiny objects, it's just going to take you off in other directions. So I think it is important to balance getting the sausage making, getting your machine working well with getting out of the office and getting new ideas. New ideas are great. And I love it, and it's a drug, but I also have an entire team behind me, so I can go take 1 or 2 nuggets, put it back into our EOS, prioritize it, and make it happen. If you don't have that bandwidth, it can be really destructive to a firm where you come back and say, we're going to do this, this, and this. You're not prioritizing it. This team is stopping what they're doing and moving on to new stuff, and you got to be careful about that.
Yeah.
Here's something that like young lawyers always ask us, and I'm interested in what you guys did. They always say, when did you guys hire your first employee, right? Because they're always because we started, it was me and Miguel, and we did everything. And then, as you get busier, once again, you have to bring in other people so you can focus on different things. And then you just grow and grow and grow. So in terms of Price Benowitz, when did you start with people? How many years did you guys work together before you hired somebody?
We started with an admin and a law clerk. Within 2 weeks, the law clerk was an associate. We were at a particularly great moment in life when the web was starting to explode. That said, what I would say is the best advice I can give somebody, if you look at a new employee as their salary for the year, let's say it's an $80,000 admin, or let's say you're starting out, so you get somebody for 60. You say, oh my God, I don't know if I can afford it. Look at it in 3 and 6 month tranches. A $60,000 employee is $15,000 for 3 months. That's a lot less scary of an investment. And you'll know a lot in 3 months and certainly in 6 months about how they're doing money. So God forbid it's a complete wash, which it won't be. Generally, if you're having that thoughtful conversation with yourself or others, you know what you're doing. But don't look at it like, hey, you could talk yourself out. $60,000 plus benefits plus this plus that. We're at $80,000. We're like, F me, I don't want to invest in that. Versus, you know what? It's 1 quarter. I'm going to take it for 3 months, and I'll jump off that bridge when I get to it.
That's some really good
That's
advice.
great advice.
Yeah,
That's great. It's a great way to look at it.
it really is. Seth, it's been a pleasure. We've spent quite a bit of time, and the knowledge that you're just giving everybody is great here. I think it's really good. We use Blue Shark. They are really good. They're really, really good. They're really attentive and responsive. But I know Seth is a very kind person, and he'll tell you the truth. He'll tell you stuff about, SEO vendors in general or just the landscape. And he's a really good person to know. Seth, how can people get a hold of you?
Any way they want. Facebook, LinkedIn, find me at Blue Shark, Seth at blueshark.com. But, as you said, I love the conversation. Any friend of yours is a friend of mine, and I hope we get to build our tribes up together.
Seth, it's been a pleasure. Amazing.
Thank you. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in to Sidebar Sessions by CD Law. Subscribe to our podcast channel and follow us at CD Law Firm. Wine picks are welcome. From Custodio and Dubey, your personal injury law firm. We'll see you next time.